Episode 7 of the Language of Leadership. I'm your host, Coach Kevin, fresh off of the Tough Mudder Dallas. We took a whole host of people from Forge Legend through the Dallas Tough Mudder. We had a fantastic time jumping over obstacles, doing all sorts of things for the love of it, which is right at the heart of today's lesson. Are you an amateur or are you a professional at what you do? And there's a very simple, easy way to tell, because even though you think you're professional, you may not actually be. Find out here in just 1 second. All right, so you may think that you're a pro just because you got paid. And in fact, that is one definition of being a professional. But when you start talking about in your life as a leader, are you an amateur or are you a professional? Everybody wants to be like, yeah, professional grade, right? But what does it even mean? You know what we do here at the Language of Leadership? We're constantly looking at the origins of words for clues to what they really mean in our life, and then trying to apply those meanings to us in a very practical way. So let's start with the word amateur. Think about what you think it means to be an amateur. Now, this has become to mean not very good at something or stumbling or new to something, which it certainly can be, but there's a very specific origin for the root word amateur that'll help you understand what the difference is between an amateur and a professional. The truth is, you may be getting paid for something that you're actually an amateur at, and you're going to want to course correct that as soon as possible. Now, I want you to think about other things in your life where you may be a professional. Now, this has also come to mean something you're paid to do or your profession, right? For sure. But when we get into the root of the word profession, it will give you a clue as to how that helps you understand how to act as a leader if you're being a professional. Are you an amateur or a professional? Well, let me tell you something. You're both. You're both right now. Now, not at the same thing at the same time, but there are things for which you're an amateur. There are things for which you're a professional. Let's get right into the word origin, right? Let's get into amateur, right? Amateur goes back to the Latin amo and then amateur, and then it comes through French and or Spanish. It means to love, right? At the base, the ame, the amo, the root of the word amateur means someone who loves something. So if I'm an amateur, it means I love it. I do it for the love of the game. I love this thing. An amateur basketball player, an amateur football player, an amateur soccer player is not doing it for money, is not doing it for some giant personal economic return, but is doing it because they love the game. Now, this doesn't mean that professionals don't love the game, but it means that when I am primarily doing this for love, I'm an amateur. Another way to say that in modern terms would be this is a hobby. I do this because it's fun, right? I have a good friend who's a lawyer. He runs businesses, but in his spare time, he does leather work, right? Now, could he sell that leather work? Yeah, but he really does it because he loves it. It's a great stress relief. It's a great expression for his artistic talent, right? So he's an amateur leather worker, right? But he's a professional in something else. That's okay. Here's the thing. When you find yourself leading at work inside of your business, if you're doing it and it's because you love it, and then when you don't love it, you put it down, that is amateur behavior. Amateurs do it when they love it. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional soccer player, for example. Amateur player might play one season, then lay off the rest of his life, or lay off 1 year, then come back, maybe make half the season, miss games, whatever. Why? Because he's doing it for the love of it. He's not under contract. He hasn't made any promises. Professional is very different. Now, let's look at the word professional, right? If you really shorten it all the way down, you're going to get back to profess, which is a Middle English term, Profes, right? Which meant to vow or to promise, to profess, right? Like you're professing that you're good at this. As trade started to specialize in the Middle Ages, people started to become professionals. Why? Because they professed, they vowed that they were really good at this. So a blacksmith would profess like, hey, I'm a blacksmith and I'll back up my work. I'm making a promise to you that my work will be of a certain grade and will be usable, or I'll fix it. So at the heart of the word professional is the word promise, to make a vow, right? Now, does that mean that a professional doesn't love what he does? No, I hope so. I hope that as a professional, you love it. What it does mean, though, is the professional shows up rain, shine, or anything. The professional shows up despite how he's feeling. An amateur has the option of not showing up. The amateur has the option of saying, I was doing this for the love of it. I don't really love it. I'm going to leave it behind. A professional no longer has that option because of the promises he or she has made. This is absolutely important to understand. If you're a professional, you've made promises that now you will deliver on. That is the definition, the sub and substance of what it means to be a professional. Now, if you are doing something as your career, as your job, if you are taking money from someone to perform a certain task, if you are a leader who is a paid leader in any way, you're off the hook of amateur, you're a professional. The question is, are you showing up that way? Are you showing up as if you made a promise by the very fact of you being there? Are you keeping your promises? Amateur, are you loving what you're doing? Are you enjoying the process? Professional, are you keeping your promises? Are you keeping the promises that you made, whether you love it or not? Now, here's the key thing, right? If you picked something to do as a professional that you don't love as an amateur, you're going to have a hard time doing that for the rest of your life, and you're going to have a hard time loving it. You're going to start burning out little by little by little. In fact, sometimes that can happen very quickly. There is a big transition between amateur and professional because there's a big energy difference between I love this, I'm going to do it, to I promise I'll do it, or you can get your money back. Pay me this, I'll deliver that, or I'm on the hook for something else. So professional, amateur, the question for you today is, are you a professional? Are you an amateur? Maybe you're a professional who's showing up as an amateur who thinks you only have to do things when you feel great about it, when you love it, which is far from the mark. Maybe you're an amateur who's showing up as a professional and you're keeping giant promises to some amateur team and you don't love it anymore. It's time to just move on because that's not your profession and it's taking away from other aspects of your life. I can tell you this though, as an amateur, understanding the difference, as a leader, as an amateur, as a leader, understanding the difference between amateur and professional is absolutely paramount. When it comes to coaching, I'm a pro. I show up, period. If I'm sick, if I'm upset, if I'm happy, if I'm depressed, whatever I am, I show up. Trust me, 2 days after the Tough Mudder, I would much rather be in bed being rubbed on by some little magic machine or anything to just put me out of the soreness. But the thing is, here I am. Why? Because I'm a professional and I love this shit, which means I'll be able to be a professional for a long, 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 long time. And I hope you will too. Keep that in mind as you go out throughout your day today.